Haha! What a fantastic start to a Tuesday morning. From seeing their tracks coming out of Simbambili to finding the lions on their buffalo kill right next to a dam called, or a waterhole called Sydney's Dam, which is in Buffelshoek. We have our wonderful Nkuhumas. It's so special to see them because, of course, yesterday I was hearing all sorts of updates about them, and they were stretching and yawning and going for a walk and having a drink at Simbambili Dam, and we couldn't get to them. So to see our much beloved pride of lions is always a very special thing indeed. Unfortunately, though, because it is on Buffelshoek, which is a property to the north of our boundary, unfortunately we can't go any closer. So I can't really improve the view that we have. However, it is always special to catch up, especially on such an atmospheric morning. Here's one little straggler. What you up to, little monkey? Go eat your breakfast. Watching the rest of the pride as they slowly but surely move towards Sydney's Dam, and I wonder if they're going to go and have a drink. I don't know, Genre, can you see those ones on the? Yes, you can. Perfect, thank you. One lioness, two lionesses. I actually think that this kill was relatively recent, at least in the last 3 or 4 hours, that these lionesses took down this buffalo. There was still a little bit of growling, a little bit of fussing over who had a chance to eat first. And now the lionesses are looking, I can't see, but she's, there we go. I was about to say, you see that hunched posture of the lioness. She might be watching something, but she's up now. And I'm hoping that while we watch these lions and at Sydney's Dam itself, or Sydney's waterhole, I'm hoping that you really might get to hear one of the most impressive sounds. What are you ladies looking at of the bush? And that is the call of the African fish eagle. And we'll go on to that in a moment, but I just want to, I actually think I want to go forward. I'm a little bit concerned about losing signal as we go forward into the dip, but I do want to... Oops. Sorry, I was speaking over the African fish eagle's call. Okay. It seems as though it's actually the lionesses have relaxed. There's some arguing over the remains of the buffalo. Chandra, I've just realized. Remember when I said the guinea fowl are making a fuss about nothing? They're not obviously making a fuss about nothing, because obviously they've been watching these lions and alarm calling at them. I always find it astounding how... I shouldn't find it astounding, the number of times I've seen it, but just the aggression between the females, and it's all forgotten. And welcome to BHJ Horses on this sunrise safari. You wanted to know how long the pride will be feeding on this... Hold on, go back. It's minor scrap. Little bit of growling between them. Sorry, horses. I'm going to shorten your name to horses. I hope you don't mind. Or perhaps BHJ. Either way, you want to know how long this carcass will last them? Not long at all. So there are 5 lionesses in this pride, at least as far as I can see at the moment. There are 5 lionesses. There might not be 5 lionesses at the moment. There might also be a male somewhere in the vicinity, but I doubt it, just because of the fact that the lionesses are feeding now and all looking relatively full. So I don't think there's a male, but there are 5 lionesses and 6 cubs, which is a lot of bellies to feed. Even though the cubs are just a few months old, the oldest are coming up to 6 months, or just 6 months. The youngest are around 4. And despite the fact that they are still young, they are hungry little creatures. And as a result, this carcass won't last them long at all. It's not a big buffalo. It looks like it is either a young male or a female, from what little I can see. The Nkuhuma is proving once again that they are a force to be reckoned with. This is the second time I've found the Nkuhumas really, really easily in the last week. Little bit closer. So when you see a vehicle getting closer and you're wondering about why it is that we can't go there, it's just traverse agreements. It's just different traverse agreements. Ah, excitement. And the lioness watching them. So there you go. Now, typically, we have seen the Nkuhumas in the past with their buffalo kill, to go back to how long it'll take them to finish it off. We've seen Nkuhumas in the past with buffalo kills, big buffalo bulls, that have lasted them a good 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 or 5 days, depending on how many lionesses are there. I love that possessive paw. This, by the way, it's mine. I want it. But now things have drastically changed with the arrival of the cubs, even though they are quite young and quite small. Fortunately for them, their moms and aunts are very proficient hunters, and they seem to have, I wouldn't call it an unparalleled success rate, but it is certainly an extraordinary success rate when it comes to catching and killing buffalo over the last few weeks. A little cub back there, ears back, already showing the signs of aggression that we've seen as the cubs have grown older. They, at such a tender age, know that they have to fight for their place at the table. And fortunately, they know that usually, mind you, that mom or aunt is probably not going to hurt too much if they do get into a fight about whose chance it is to feed. Now, Red, you say, so is it only these 2 lionesses? No, Red, it is, there are definitely 4. So remember how we saw the 2 lionesses looking towards the water hole, and I said, oh, they might have seen something. There are definitely 2 lionesses. I'm not sure if there could actually be 3 across the other side of the vegetation where James is, and I'll ask him in a moment. It's either 4 or 5. There's definitely 4. So one of them is lying there. The second lioness moved off a little bit, and you can see James and the rest of the crew watching in that direction. So she might have gone to have a drink. Now, absolutely, there are more than 2 lionesses. As for cubs, it's been a bit tricky to do a head count, just in terms of the distance that we have to keep. Unfortunately, we can't go any closer, so I can't do a head count. But since James is very conveniently driving a vehicle that can drive there, we'll find out shortly. And Shlak, you want to know where the dominant male is. Well, here's the fascinating thing about lion prides and the way in which they work. Movies like The Lion King and sort of traditional documentaries have taught us, and obviously documentaries have changed in their style, but traditional documentaries have taught us that there is a pride of lions, and the pride of lions has 1 or 2 or 3 males that heads them up. That's actually not exactly how prides work. A pride is just females and their offspring, and they move about in their own territory, and that will border on the territory of another pride and so on. And then what happens is we get either a single male or a group of males known as a coalition. And a coalition of males will have a very large territory that will actually overlap with that of several different prides that they will be dominant over. And what that means, I don't know if any of you saw the Swainson's spurfowl there. That's a bird that we don't often get to see. Sorry, distraction! Look at it with its red face. Swainson's spurfowl for all of you with your budding bird lists. Sorry, I'll go back into lion dynamics in a moment, but that is an opportunity not to be missed. Well done, Gendre. Swainson's, S-W-A-I-N-S-O-N-S, Swainson's spurfowl. Related to the Franklins, of course. Right, so dominant males will have a very, very large territory. Sometimes they're with the prides, whether they are mating with the females or sharing their kills, and sharing is a very, very strong use of the word sharing. Usually dominating their kills is perhaps more accurate. But a lot of the time they're off either on their own or in groups, busy defending their territory or just moving about on their own. So in this area, our dominant males are known as the Birmingham boys, and there's 4 of them. As to where they are now, I can't tell you. They'll be somewhere, but they've got a good 8,000, at least an 8,000 hectare territory, if not larger. So they're not always with the females. I think that is a fact for which the females are occasionally grateful, just because for them it means that they get to enjoy the carcass unchallenged. But the males do play a very important role, and they'll be traveling and moving about, particularly at night, defending their territory. And the fact that they do so is it's crucial to particularly the survival of these little cubs that you're seeing. Because the minute that those boys disappear, the minute that they lose their grip on their territory, their cubs that they have fathered will be killed by incoming new males, which is all part of it. Sounds harsh, it's all part of the natural cycle of lions and making sure that there's no inbreeding. But the male lions do form a very, very crucial part. It's not a hands-on part of the cubs' lives, but it is an absolutely essential part. And welcome to BHJ horses. Should I call you horses or shall I call you BHJ? Which one would you prefer? Because at some point I'm going to get that wrong. DHJ. Oh, well, I'd better get it right then if I'm going to shorten your name. Apologies. Very good morning to you once again. I've completely forgotten your question now. We were talking about lions. Oh, yes, I remember. Thank you very much, Chandra. Thank you very much. You wanted to know if lions chuff like tigers. No, they don't. Tigers are actually the only creatures that chuff, and it's a sort of a... I can't quite imitate the tiger chuff that they do. Probably the only animal that comes close-ish to a tiger chuff out here is maybe a leopard, when they call for their cubs, and that's a sort of a ow, ow sound that they make. Lions don't chuff, they do roar, which puts them as part of the same family as the tigers and the leopards. It's the Panthera family, that ability to roar, which occurs in the hyoid suspensorium. So the voice box, which in human beings is a solid fused organ, whereas in lions and in leopards and in tigers, all of the cats that make a roaring sound, it is not fused, so it can expand. It's called the suspensorium. Leopards come close. Lions do contact call, and we've been fortunate enough to watch these lovely ladies with their cubs over the last few months, and you get this amazing sort of ow, ow sound from the cubs. Not that sound, that's a different thing altogether. That's just angry. And then you do get the low contact calls of the lionesses, which sort of sound a bit like this. So those are the general sounds that you'll hear. Cheetah also have a wide variety of sounds that they make. They do not roar, which is one of the reasons why they are in a separate genus from the Panthera cats. So the lions and the leopards and the tigers. They chirp and they purr, and no, they don't really chuff. It's a stretch to say that they chuff. They sort of go as a contact call between the moms and cubs. So there you go, the wide vocal variety of our different cats, as done by Jamie. Disclaimer, I don't claim to be an expert at imitating the cats, although I think my lion cub impression is I've got it down. Jerry in Final Control, who is directing this morning's show, she has given me an 8 out of 10 for my animal impressions. I think I lost points on that cheetah call. That cheetah call was a bit poor. I feel as though my leopard contact call with cubs was pretty good, and I feel as though my cub contact call, lion contact call, was pretty good. Yeah. Jerry says leopard was good. I'm not going to even attempt to do a lion growl or a lion roar. I know my limits. Bear with me one moment. I would just like to contact Mr. Hendry, provided he's listening to his radio. James. Yay! Do you know if there are 4 or 5 lionesses? Copy, thank you. James says he thinks they're 5. He thinks he's counted 5. They are sort of moving about, so it's difficult to keep track, but it does seem as though there are 5 lionesses. So all 5 of our lovely Nkuhuma ladies are here and are present. So all of the essential parts, not essential parts, that's a very poor way of phrasing it, my apologies. All of the best parts of the buffalo kill are gone. The very first thing that almost all predators will eat when they catch something is the organs. Things like the liver, the heart, the lungs, the kidneys, all of those, of course, have an incredible amount of nutrients, whether they are acting as a storage unit or for whatever reason, they are very, very nutrient rich. So the parts of the animal that are most in demand will be the organs. And you can see that we're looking into the chest cavity of this buffalo. All of the organs are gone already. And it might have been that this kill is, I would suggest, is a few hours old. At first I thought it was fresh, just judging by the sounds that I could hear, but I actually think it's a few hours old. It's always brrr. Yes, I hear you. And welcome to Gary, who would like to know what all of the insects are that are flying around the buffalo. They're carcass flies. So you said they look rather large. They are rather large. They're probably about that big. And it's something that as you become more familiar with our live safaris, Gary, and as we get, obviously when the kills are on or in an area where we can go a little bit closer, you'll find that we're often plagued by the carcass flies that buzz around the carcasses. They'll actually come and sit around us. We'll be waving our hands around like we're doing some kind of bizarre fly dance. They are carcass flies, big bottle green flies with red heads. So that's what's buzzing around. In next to no time, as in the next 24 hours, this carcass will be teeming with maggots. That will then, of course, go about completing their life cycle in terms of growing. And as I'm sure many of you know, maggots, their growth rate depends very much on the temperature that they are exposed to. So on a chilly morning like this morning, and forgive me off the top of my head, I can't remember how warm it was or how cool it was. I have a vague feeling it was low 20s, 21-ish. Mm-hmm. It was. There we go. Genre says yes, 21 degrees centigrade, which is 71 in Fahrenheit. So yes, it's a nippy-ish morning for us here in middle of summer with the clouds. So the growth rate of the maggots might be slightly slower, but we will continue to see flies buzzing around that carcass for at least another 24 hours, if not longer. And after that will come the ticks and the carrion beetles. And just by the way, speaking of carrion beetles, I don't know if any of you were watching the bushwalk that we did a few days ago, where we were sitting at a civetry, which is a type, it's basically a midden that a certain type of animal leaves. But the beetles that we were looking at were in fact carrion beetles. I double checked. I had a feeling that they were, but they were in fact carrion beetles. Not, they're sort of part of, they're connected to the dung beetle family, but only in a very vague way. So they were carrion beetles. the little face of that cub. You can see the female utilizing her claws there to hold the buffalo down as she tucks in. Now, meal times for our new viewers, meal times with lions are always like this. There is always lots of growling, and even with the cubs involved, often the cubs find themselves at the receiving end of a swat from mom or aunt's massive paws. So meal times are, it's basically every lion for themselves, even for the little cubs. There's very little altruistic about lions at the dinner table. Oh, yes, little one. Sorry, lioness. I don't know if she heard me. There, she's calling. Whoops. I actually think she did hear me. I didn't mean to, but I actually think she did hear me call. Not this lioness, but the one that was at the kill. As I did the little owl sound of the cub, which I'm going to cease from doing, I'm not sure if I'm really overestimating my ability to do lion cub calls, but she immediately looked up and started contact calling. I'm not sure. It's definitely, her reaction was almost instantaneous. It's the one with her head up, Chandra. As soon as I did that cub call, she looked across at me and then started doing the low lioness contact call. Oops, sorry, girl. Sorry. That was totally unintentional if you did actually respond to me. I might be wrong. She might just be calling her cubs. But it did feel as though I accidentally sounded too much like a cub. Look at that little cub at the back hissing. Cheeky monster. Stop hissing and eat, then. Your mom's not doing anything to stop you. Ooh. Angry little lion cubs. Just like your pet cats or your pet dogs at home, or your pet horses, actually. If you're familiar with animals at all, you'll immediately know that ears back posture tells you a great deal about the animal's mood, and the same thing applies to lions. When they're cross, when they're aggressive, they will have their ears flat back like that. It's an aggressive defensive pose, if that makes any sense. That ears back at the kill. They're saying this is my patch, but at the same time they are patiently waiting to be on the receiving end of the odd blow. We're going to sit here for a little bit longer as the lions squabble over their breakfast. Excuse me. However, in the meantime, there is somebody who would very much like to say good morning to you, so let's head over to Steph.